Right, it's 20 minutes before 7 here on Morning Live on this Thursday morning. Good to have you with us. Well, today, Corruption Watch is releasing its annual report for 2014. The report states that while we have an impressive range of laws and institutions dedicated to combating corruption, the reality is that many of our leaders act with absolute impunity. Corruption Watch has been following up on public sector since its inception in 2012. With us here today is David Lewis. He is the Executive Director for Corruption Watch. David, thank you very much for joining us. Always good to have you on the program. So the opening lines of the report go something along the lines of, the situation is really dire. This is worrying.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, I don't think we were the first ones to have discovered that. But certainly the response we're getting in the form of reports from the public, and we're getting them across the country, across the range of activities, different values of money involved, tell you that it is really cause for huge concern.
Yeah.
Which I think is shared by just about everybody in the country.
I mean, in fact, you were saying that there's been a 17% hike or increase in the amount of people that are actually reporting corruption.
To us, yeah.
Is that just the fact that people are getting fed up with corruption, or is it an indication that there's more corruption?
It's difficult to say. I think we are becoming somewhat better known. I think that people are increasingly willing to speak out about it, which is very gratifying and very encouraging. And I think it may well be on the increase, I mean, it's very difficult to measure that, whether it's on the increase or the decrease or it's staying the same. It's too much. I mean, and this is what I think people are telling us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what really upset me reading the report and some of the items out of it was that schools are getting the most complaints and are basically the most corrupt as we sit here in South Africa.
Yeah. When we started and invited people to submit reports to us, we noticed and we were taken aback in a sense that we were getting a very large volume of reports about corruption in the management of school resources. This is not kind of education department corruption. It's at the level of the individual school. And the amounts of money involved are not very great, but the human necessarily, in the scale of things, I mean, sometimes they run into several hundreds of thousands of rands across many schools, so you put that together, it is great, but the human interest element is very strong. Yeah. It's like, money for a sports team that teachers used to go on a team-building exercise to Mozambique, I remember, was one. The difference between whether the school has an extra classroom or it doesn't, where the toilets get fixed or they don't. It's that kind of thing. And I think that parents who may otherwise not be inclined to report corruption or be concerned about corruption, when it comes to the welfare of their children, get, like as you've said about yourself, get very angry and they get emotional and it's very visible and the impact is very clear. And so when we started the campaign on schools, the complaints or the reports started pouring in, and they're still coming in at and every time we talk about it, like on a program like this, I can assure you that in this week there'll be a spike of reports on corruption in schools.
So the most complaints, according to the organisation, coming out of Gauteng, Johannesburg in particular.
Yeah, I'm not sure Johannesburg. Yes, I think that Johannesburg is the highest. Yes, Gauteng is obviously very dense population. Very densely populated, a lot of economic activity, a lot of public institutions. It may be also that our profile is somewhat higher still, although I think that's evening out in Gauteng than in some of the other provinces. But high levels of corruption and some admirable things being done by some of the provincial government leaders in Gauteng as well in response to it.
Yeah, and particularly from the principals at schools. I mean, this is where it's all stemming from, is the principals and the school governing bodies, and this is where it's all
in schools, the most common form that it takes is in collaboration between school principals and the chairman of school governing bodies. I mean, these are the people who manage the money effectively.
Yeah.
And yes, I suppose corruption goes to where the money is.
No, it certainly does. But I mean, and are we talking about very affluent schools, or are we talking about... No.
I mean, we get reports from affluent schools as well, but I mean, the vast majority are from schools in sort of low-income areas.
Okay. All right, so that's schooling, which is very, very worrying. And I see next on the corruption hotspot is traffic and licensing.
Yeah.
That comes in at 12%.
Yeah. Yeah, these are, these are often, including the schools thing, because they don't, not each transaction doesn't amount to large amounts of money by the scale of, some of the big tender corruption. But so it's often referred to petty corruption, and I think that name sends the wrong signal, because these are the areas in which citizens, sometimes they're the only areas in which citizens ever deal with the state. And they develop their perceptions of the state and of public service on the basis that they're dealing with a traffic cop or the vehicle licensing department, or indeed in the schools with the principal. And so, it leads to this enormous erosion of trust in the public sector, which is one of the most damaging consequences of corruption. I mean, people usually try and calculate the cost of corruption in rands and cents, which is very difficult, but somewhat possible. But it is possible to see it very palpably in the fact that increasingly people don't trust the public sector. They are being made to pay for services that they should be getting free. They're in the taxi in the morning and they see the exchange, the regular exchange between the traffic cop and the taxi driver that enables them to get to where they get in time. So it's these petty corruption cases, which are a lot, it's not all petty corruption cases, but these petty corruption cases that are reported to us have to be taken very seriously.
Yeah. David, let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue to talk about this and some other findings that have come out of this Corruption Watch survey. And the types of corruption, I think the biggest is the abuse of power by our leaders. I'm going to hang on a second. We're going to talk about that now. Stay with us.